Saban hooked your boy up. Roll toilet.
The rebellion of the recruits. That vine was from Notre Dame commit Elijah Hood throwing a letter from Alabama head coach Nick Saban in the toilet. Ray Crawford, Pete Futek here in studio, along with Scout.com and Fox Sports Next recruiting guru Alan True. Guys, at the top of my mind, maybe the only thing comparable here is Michigan commitment Logan Tully-Tillman when he burned that letter from Urban Meyer. So which is worse, Pete, in your mind, flushing or burning?
Well, considering Nick Saban is Satan, according to so many, it's all interesting. You know what? They're just rising up the rhetoric here, and they're just kind of making this thing more fun. There's really nothing wrong with this. It's much ado about nothing, I think, from a lot of sides. I think, yes, it seems disrespectful, and it might not be exactly what you want your recruits to be doing, but at the same time, fans love it. They get into this sort of thing, and I think it's kind of fun for the overall game.
Alan?
I would go with flushing. I think, you burn letters from old girlfriends, right? And that's the same thing when a school stops recruiting you. If you've picked a school, you've moved on, you've met a new girl, you can burn some old letters. Flushing, that's what you do with waste products. So I think that flushing may be a little bit more disrespectful.
Wait. Recruiting gurus have girlfriends?
Sure, and some are married, like
really?
Alan True. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
He did find that one lucky woman in his life. All right, let's get this back on rails here. Hood did follow up that prank with a couple of tweets. The first one says, "My toilet is getting lots of looks right now. Gosh, I was just trying to get started with Vine. Hashtag #OneVineWonder. Hashtag roll toilet." And he did follow up about 9 hours later tweeting, "But really, it's not about me. It's about the joke. Roll toilet. I was just hoping for an inside joke with friends. LOL, about turned it into a
Got a
trend."
bigger problem with the spelling and syntax of this.
Well, Alan, that's the way the kids and the recruits communicate this way. Can you think of any other situation like this where a recruit has done something like this and maybe the potential repercussions among fan bases and his teammates even?
Well, Tully-Tillman was the best recent example, but before him, the guy he might even be blocking for next year, Devin Gardner, had burned, I think, a camp invite from Ohio State when he was getting recruited through the process. So that shows you a little bit of the hatred in that rivalry, that we have two Michigan commits doing that with Ohio State letters. So in recent memory, those are the only two that really pop up other than Elijah Hood.
All right, so while we have you here, the other big recruiting news of the day is the fact that Eddie Vanderdoss will play for UCLA. He's going to have to sit out a year and wait. Notre Dame refusing to release him from his letter of intent. Alan, I guess your thought and reaction and what led up to this decision here by Vanderdoss?
Well, it sounds like there was some personal stuff, some family stuff. Obviously, he wanted to be closer to home, and that's why he chooses UCLA and didn't even look at a lot of other schools. I think it's a pretty big blow for Notre Dame. It's a five-star recruit going from one school to another. So big loss for Notre Dame, big get for UCLA. He's obviously going to sit the year. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's an extra year of development for him, and I think he'll be able to make an instant impact next year.
And Pete, we saw a similar situation here with linebacker Matthew Thomas at Florida State. We have seen this before. Your thoughts about Notre Dame not letting a 17, 18-year-old kid
set the dial to hypocritical here. Brian Kelly, dances around with the pros, and he's probably going to leave at some point in the next 2 to 5 years for an NFL gig. And he's been able to take off from schools for other schools. He left Cincinnati, obviously, for this gig. And yet he's not releasing Vanderdoss from his letter of intent. But 99% of the time, I'm on the side of the players for almost everything. But in this, I kind of get it, because you can't set that precedent. If you let him go without any sort of impact whatsoever, that just sends every other school out there to say, you know what, it's still a feeding frenzy. You can still come after our players, and we're going to let them go. Now you can be Steve Spurrier about it and say, look, you don't want to be a part of what we're doing? Good luck. Here's a peanut butter sandwich and a bus ticket. See you later. But I get it from Kelly's standpoint that, you don't want to set that precedent now that's saying you can come dance with our dates later.
And Alan and Pete, we're seeing a lot of this happening, especially in college basketball as well, where athletes are wanting to make a lot of movement to schools, and schools are starting to put their foot down a little bit. Do you think that, Alan, is a good thing that schools are kind of holding some of these student athletes to their commitment?
I think so, and like Pete said, it's about setting a precedent, and that's why that rule is in place. The sitting out rule is in place to begin with, so you don't have just a mass exodus of guys trying to jump ship and go to different schools when things don't go right the first year. Hey, the first year of college is difficult. It's a difficult choice. I think a lot of kids would try to move on if they could. And I think the rule is a good thing, and I think schools putting their foot down is a good thing, because otherwise I think you'd have guys changing schools all the time. And that's certainly something that I think would be bad for college football.
All right, Alan, Pete, guys, thanks very much. The conversation continues. Is Brett Bielema, Arkansas's new coach, out of control? Find out if his tweets are on target or off target, only on CampusInsiders.com.